All right, friends, I have Amanda here, and today we're continuing our series on what's working right now. And we're going to talk about what is working and not working when it comes to consistency and online networking. Amanda has been experimenting with a lot of different stuff over the past few months, and I think her insights are going to be really encouraging for everyone on here. So could you paint just a little bit of a before, well, specifically, actually, before we go into like a before and after, consistency, let's talk about consistency.
Okay.
I'm like, wait, which way do I want to go? No, let's talk about networking first and then consistency. I think that would make
Okay.
sense. Okay, so you went from before several months ago to I will never enroll anyone again because literally, and we would argue, no, serious, everyone ever I know. To now you're in a place where you mentioned I have an endless amount of people I'm meeting online.
Yeah.
So can you explain how you got from one place to the next, maybe even including some of the things you thought were going to be awesome that
Okay.
weren't?
Okay.
I'm thinking Clubhouse specifically, that experience.
Yeah.
Okay. That had really a lot of promise, experimented, didn't work, and then what did work, and some variations that you've done on the social media strategy that we teach that I think are just, I mean, mind-blowingly simple and brilliant, and I'm just so proud of it. So I guess just go. Like, how'd you get from the two?
So yeah, I completely started with every single person that I know is enrolled, which is true because I care about everybody and they needed oils. And so everybody I care about got oils. But then I found myself in this management mode of really just supporting the team and not enrolling myself at all. And then I learned about networking online and I tried a few different tactics. So, Clubhouse, like you were talking about, I was so excited about Clubhouse. So, I mean, I almost wrote a course for it.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I realized I don't know if Clubhouse is really for me. And it really definitely was a different kind of energy on there where I think that everybody that is on that platform is in a massive networking. You can make it work. There definitely is. It just ended up not being a time investment that I really wanted to go into.
Can you explain what is Clubhouse?
Okay.
And then I just kind of like to add why it was so exciting from my vantage point.
Okay.
Just so people have context.
Right. Okay. So Clubhouse is a new social media app, and there are these different rooms that you can go in, and it's all voice. There's no type anything except for your bio. And when you go into these rooms, you get to hear people talking on a specific topic. You can raise your hand, you can host your own room. There is value. I do go on Clubhouse to get value from people who I want to learn from, like Amy Porterfield or things like that. Like I follow people I want to learn from, but in a networking aspect, I'm not saying it's not great, but it's not great for me right now. Sure. And I just was not building relationships, which is really what I wanted to do. The people who were messaging me from this platform, they have their pitch, they have their thing that everybody's trying to basically sell something, is what it really felt like to me. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to build relationships. And so I went a different route. So you were going to explain
why something. I thought, well, I think it's very like, there's this new thing. I could be an early adopter. There's a lot of excitement around that. And so I think a lot of people will just like, they'll jump into, and what I observed was so much enthusiasm, so much excitement. So I love that it got you into action. Because I think it sparked something. But from an experimental perspective, it was like a lot of time.
Yeah. For
a very small amount from a numerical perspective of new people you were able to interact with.
Yeah.
And I think that was hard. And so when we're networking, we really want to think about what is the time spent and the right kinds of relationships that you're trying to interact with. Who are you trying to interact with, and what platform are they on? And so
Mhm.
while I just continue to feel very, very old when I say this, the people that were gravitating towards Clubhouse were not normal people. They were
Mhm.
like entrepreneurs or thinker types who were going, at least the people that I noticed, they were like, oh, this is a great place to learn about business or be inspired, right? But that, like, in network marketing, your customer is like a 35 to 45-year-old woman who's too busy for everything.
Mhm.
So where I was getting stuck with Clubhouse is like, okay, I get it from a professional development perspective, but we call her, when I sell knives, Mrs. Jones. Would Mrs. Jones be sitting around Clubhouse?
Nope.
And I think that's something that we need to remember is, what is Mrs. Jones spending her time doing?
Yeah.
Not what am I excited about? Because I think that leaders take initiative to meet people where they're at instead
Mhm.
of forcing people to be where they are and then being upset with them then in
Yeah.
that certain way. So that was my thoughts
Yeah.
on all that. But I love that you experimented with it. And I think what's
Mhm.
really important about that whole experience is we need to be open in business and entrepreneurship to experiment.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for the right best answer, and there isn't one. There's principles and then there are experiments. So that just kind of, what I loved about that for you was that you were open and experimenting, which
Mhm.
is that attitude that led to what I suppose we would call failure on paper, right?
Yeah.
Because you invested maybe a month.
Yeah.
Um, Failure. But the thought process and what you learned from it created the breakthrough on Facebook. Because if
Yes.
you would have not been open to experimenting and trying new things and thinking bigger about how do I connect with people on a relational level, you would not have found your
Mm-mm.
strategy for Facebook, where Mrs. Jones does still sit and scroll on.
Yes. Right.
Okay,
True.
so carry
Okay.
on.
Okay.
Rest.
So then I decided that I was going to go and play where these people were playing at. Facebook groups has been my big aha. And I am in groups that are an interest of mine. So I had a baby in November. One of my groups is the November babies group. I have a whole list of, a couple thousand people inside of this. And we all have number one thing in common. We all had a baby in November. I'm able to show up in this group, give value. And so I am going in every single day and making sure that I'm commenting on at least 5 posts. And it's not just, oh, so cute, or yeah, me too, or anything like that. Like, I'm actually giving value. I am creating conversations in there. And so I am using the 5 push strategy. I'm not doing it as frequently as I would in my group, but I am asking questions so people can feel cool and
Yeah.
helpful. I am sharing stories. I am just making sure that my face is in this community as a value giver.
Same as if you move to a new town.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not going in and friend requesting every single person that's inside of this group. But when we have something in common, when they say something that I'm like, there it is, right? One thing is if somebody posts a picture of their baby and they say, my baby was born on the 27th, me too. So I'm going to friend request them and I'm going to say, our babies are birthday twins. And we have that little thing that's in common. So number one, I need at least 2 things in common with somebody before I friend request them. And then I will take it to Messenger, where I ask them something or I give them a compliment, usually compliment their baby, and just have these genuine conversations. And this has led to so many people that are friends with me on my Facebook.
Mhm.
So now, while I'm posting, doing the 5 push strategy on my own personal Facebook, they're my playground. And then I can create a custom list with all of them on it. So when I go to Facebook, I go to that list. I have all of those November mamas on one list where I can gush on their baby, make sure I look at their stories, because when you look at stories and you comment, you're now in a messenger conversation with them.
Yeah.
And so it's all just right now building relationships with these girls. And I have one in Connecticut. I adore her. We sat on Zoom for like 3 hours and it was ridiculous. I'm like, this is not okay. This is way too long, but we just have so much in common. And I mean, lifelong friend right there.
I love
And
it.
that's the thing, is I have ditched the concept of they're enrolling. Like, I don't even think about that anymore. Where before it really was, okay, they need to enroll. They need to get a kid. Like, I had an ulterior motive.
Yeah, that's right.
So now I'm just like, I'm just going to make friends and build my network.
And that's what you did before.
Right.
Did you right? Like, you came out of the gate in your network marketing business pretty hot.
Yeah. Well, it was
And-
really crazy because actually didn't really have friends. I had like my childhood and high school friends. Like, I didn't.
So how did that work?
Well, I mean, thankfully some of them were really social and they started doing things. And then I started meeting people through people and becoming social. It's weird.
I can't even imagine a place in which you are not social, except you are pretty introverted, actually.
I'm super introverted. Yeah. Like, I would rather go to a coffee shop, headphones in, and please don't talk to me. I'm creating.
So how do you overcome that? Because I think like if people were to see you show up on a training or on this thing, I don't think anyone would guess.
Yeah.
Introvert,
Yeah.
leave me alone.
It's really interesting how I have changed. I was listening to, Boss Lee.
Yeah.
Okay. I was listening to a podcast of hers and she was saying that she's really introverted. And I'm like, what? No way. She created this alter ego for her business. And I mean, I haven't gone that far, but when I am on stage and presenting or doing a class or having any kind of a conversation afterwards, I go, I'm done for a while. I have to go and be within my head. And I think that my strengths has something to do with that, because intellection is one of my top strengths. And
yeah, the alter ego research is really interesting. I started learning about alter ego maybe 3 years ago. My coach made me create one, but I realized as an athlete, we all have alter egos. Like, we have who we are with our parents and who we are with our best friend and who we are in class or whatever, right? Like, they're all true. They're just the different versions that are appropriate for whoever it is that we're with. And so it's not appropriate for an introvert to be like super lame and like, I don't want to talk to anyone in a social setting.
Right.
Right. Nor is it okay for an extrovert to nonstop talk in a coffee shop.
Right.
Right. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
So I love that. I just love that idea. I think it's really important that our introverts step up and say, and introverts can look in someone's eyes, smile, listen to them, and love people, and still be introverts.
Right. And also, you have to find your people, right? And sometimes how I kind of came out of that whole thing was finding people that I can go into some deep conversations with. That really helped me to meet people who are interesting. so I could talk with them. And then I'm like, wow, there could be more interesting people out there. And
Likely
yeah.
out of billions of people, there's enough interesting
Yes.
people
Mhm.
for all of us to have our people. Tell us about your finding a second common interest hack, because I thought this was the most brilliant, the bullet journal one. You
Oh,
have to tell them about this.
yeah. Okay. I totally forgot about that.
That's like, it's like the strategy I've been drooling over for.
Okay. So, I went into a couple of the groups that I'm in, and I took something that I'm into. So I love bullet journaling. And I asked a question, who here also loves bullet journaling, and like created a conversation based off another interest. So I'm in November Mom group, right? The topic is babies. I take one of my hobbies and throw it in there, right? Or it could be who here loves working out? Who here has an Apple Watch? Let's be
Okay.
friends.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, we can challenge each other. I have a couple girls from the moms group that are on my Apple Watch. I see their workouts every day, and I'll respond with like a fire emoji and just, yeah. So you have to go into these groups and these spaces that are talking about this one thing, and then kind of like come from left field and boom, who else this? And there's 10, 20 people that are commenting on there. Those are your new friends. Friend request them. Get in their messenger.
That's
Mhm.
yeah. I think
I
that
forgot about that.
I don't know how you forgot that. That's the one I'm like, this is the most brilliant strategy I've
Yeah.
ever heard, because I thought the advice strategy was smart, but I think this one's smarter.
Mhm.
The advice strategy is to go into groups and ask for advice, because the
Yes.
fastest way to make influence is tell people how smart they are. But who else loves etc.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's so smart. And then, I mean, it's a genuine, I think what I really love about your strategy is how authentic it is. And so I hope you guys are catching that there's none of this is fake.
Mm-mm.
None of it is like misconstrued. Like it's just like, it's right on. So I hope everyone who's watching or listening, I hope that was super helpful from a strategic perspective. So let's talk about consistency a little bit.
Okay.
So you're working, you have 100 kids, or it feels like that.
Basically.
many
My
kids?
friend says 87 million.
Okay,
But, okay.
so how many kids do you actually have?
5.
5. And you have a baby who's like, I'm here and I would like all your attention
Mhm.
all the time. Okay. So that's tricky in running a 6-figure network marketing business. I mean, there's logistical issues here. So consistency has been something that's been on and off. So I think that's a lot of people. So when you are consistent with your work, what are you noticing are the commonalities that help you to do that? And when you're not consistent, what do you notice are the commonalities there? Because I think if people watching or listening to this can kind of see it from a outside perspective, they'll probably notice some of their own patterns and be able to fix them in the same way you are in the process of fixing yours.
Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna like free flow all of this right now. Just kind of like random what I've noticed. So here's what is working. So first of all, weekly CEO meeting is probably one of the most important things that myself and my husband can do. You can do this with your spouse or by yourself, whatever. You just need to have a meeting where you are getting a clear definition of what success looks like for the week. How ours goes, we celebrate our wins. We reflect on what we did right. We reflect on what we could have done differently. And I mean, this is in all areas of our life, from the kids to the money, to the food, to the fitness, to all of it. And so, I mean, ours is really long. Ours is like 3 hours. But we have found that if we do not do this, our week is just kind of like flopping around. And one of the things is we use Google Calendar. and we have the things in there that are reoccurring, right?
Mhm.
But if we don't have this meeting and we don't go, okay, so for social media, what exactly are we doing on this reoccurring thing? Like, let's open it up. Let's add a description on the Google Calendar. So when that pops up, what we are seeing is you're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z,
Right.
right?
So,
Thank you,
so if you
Tasha.
don't have the CEO meeting,
Mhm.
you still have all the same blocks.
Yeah, but it's not telling us what to do.
Okay, so your social media block is Monday, 2:00, whatever.
Yeah,
You didn't have the CEO meeting, so you don't have any detail there.
right.
What happens?
I don't do it.
But why not? Why
I
don't you just plan it right then and there?
I don't know. I I really don't know. There is such
Well, I
a
do the
difference.
same thing.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's just there's a different energy. That's the only thing I can say is there's a different energy to a thing that pops up without intention being put into it
mhm,
and planning. When it's planned out and I have step 1, step 2, step 3, I know what to do. I guess that's it. That's why
yeah,
I don't do it, because I have no direction. I don't know what I'm supposed to actually be doing. And in that moment, I don't really want to plan for it.
right. Well,
So
it's
it's
two
the
different roles.
pre-planning party
It's a
that
pre-plan.
generates the action.
Yeah, well, there's two roles. There's the boss, there's the employee. And so the boss
Right.
didn't show up to work. And so the
Yeah.
employee's at work and was like,
I don't know
I
what
guess
to
I'll
do.
just stay here and text until my boss tells me what to do, but the boss is not showing up.
That's it.
And the boss only has to work 1 day a week.
Mhm.
But if the boss doesn't show up for work, then
Yeah.
we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's not working out. So that's number 1.
I love it.
Number 2 that's working is I have to say that I think the best investment for me this year has been the Apple Watch.
Okay.
And it just buzzes and it tells me things, and I can tell it to set a timer for 15 minutes. And so we are using 15-minute timers for everything that we dive into. I mean, even if, unless I know I really need a super long productivity block on something, then I'll change the timer. But the timer tells me to just stop, take a deep breath, take a walk. You can come back to it. But otherwise, I'm all over the place. I can end up on social media. And just this morning, we did a brain dump session together and we had 15 minutes, timer set. We brain dumped all kinds of stuff so that we could either parking lot it or put it on the Google Calendar. And once that timer went off, we just disengaged. And this is what we've got.
It's almost like you created a game.
Yeah. Yeah. And the kids they're getting it too. It's like you just have to spend 15 minutes on your room right now. So just set a timer. They have echoes in all their rooms. Set a timer, get it done. You're doing this art project, cool. 15-minute timer, because I know you're going to walk away from it. And when that 15-minute timer goes off, if you're not done, reset it, but you better not walk away until that stuff is clean. Not kidding.
Keeps you
Too
from-
many of you.
And it keeps you from giving up or
Yeah.
procrastinating, because 15
Yep.
minutes is manageable.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, cool. So when it's not working, or do you have anything else for the when it's working, your consistency?
So I'm going to share one of my husband's tips. So we've got Google Calendar, but he will start the morning. He has this like checkered paper and he just has it. It just goes around the house with him. And he will list out everything for the day, even from our Google Calendar. It's just something that he's constantly going back, reevaluating and going, okay, even a kid has to go to work. That time is on there. It's like I don't know, he just makes sure everything gets crossed off, and whatever's left over, he takes it over to the next day and to the next day. And so it's just kind of his visual way of, and you could do that with bullet journaling too, which I tried to get him to do. And he still just likes his checkered paper that you can see. It's everywhere.
I love that.
Yeah.
So a visual. So here's what I wrote down. Separating planning from executing.
Yes.
Once the plan is made, because I think where people get stuck is they plan, they're like, oh, I can do the CEO meeting. But then when they get there, to the execution block, they try to replan it or something. That's not
Yeah,
what
you
we're
can't
talking
do that. You just have
about.
to do
Plan
it.
once and then execute the entire week.
Yeah.
I do that as well. It helps. 15-minute increments. I'm going to try not to be offended by you calling the Apple Watch the best investment you've made this year.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Obviously
I'm just
you
kidding.
are. Obviously you are. I meant tech tool.
I just messing with you. Just messing. Okay. And then the visual.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So this is a third what's working well. I don't know how it's going to end up in sequence when we actually publish. And we're seeing the same trends with the visuals and with the detail planning.
Yep.
What advice would you give someone who's like, I'm adaptable and flowy and I like to take things as it goes? What would you
Okay,
say?
so that's actually me. Like really me. I
Okay.
don't do well with, I mean, I'd be the worst employee. I don't know how I've never been fired with prior jobs. Not good. So we talked about this. I'm like, I don't want to. I like the idea of Google Calendar, but I don't want to. And then Tasha taught me that I can like look at it as more like a to-do list and I can rearrange things. And I might have social media planning it too. And when that comes off and my Apple Watch says, hey girl, it's time to do social media. And I can say, actually, that's not going to work out for me right now because I'm going to go to the gym because this is my only chance. Or Zaylee's sleeping and I need to go hang out with this kid for a little bit. I can drag it and I can change it. And I look at Google Calendars more. I'm going to feel really freaking good about myself if I just look at everything that was on it and know that it got done.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when.
It doesn't matter when, it just matters that it gets done. Because if it doesn't get done, then I'm going to be crying at the end of the week. Woe is me. Like I suck and I didn't do anything. Well, that's dumb.
Yeah. Well, and then there's guilt and it just makes it
Yeah,
hard.
it's just dumb. We don't need to be there.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in partnering with opposites too. And so a lot of people will be like, but Tasha, I can't use your method because I'm adaptable and you're not. And I'm like, that's the point. If you're not, right, if you get stuck in this place, it's better, right? If I'm normally not adaptable, it's very helpful to have a partner who is adaptable because then I can get smacked out, like snap out of it. You're being too rigid. I'm going to lead right now because you're not capable, right? Like, I think that's really good. When it doesn't work, what are the patterns that you see?
Nothing gets done.
Like, what, like, or is it just the opposite of this? Like, you just don't do this UFO?
Yes.
Is there any other, like, when things are disruptive in your life, as they are for all of us, what do you do on the good weeks versus the bad weeks?
Well, I complain that my business is falling apart and my life is falling apart and we're going to starve. And then, and it's because I'm not in action. And so inaction creates a stressed out Amanda, and action makes me feel like I'm progressing towards something. And so, I mean, that's just really, if I'm not planning, I'm in action. I'm winging it. I'm like, oh, this sounds like a great Facebook post to do. Like, what is happening? No planning, sporadic outreach will not happen.
Yeah.
I will not outreach to people.
I love that. But the planning is constrained to 3 hours, 1 day a week for a full-time business. So for a part-time business, probably half of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're doing just business, it doesn't have to be a full 3 hours. I mean, that's our whole life. But if our home life is falling apart and out of balance, our business is going to mirror that.
Sure.
And so we have to be super clear on who's doing what. And I mean, we also have individual meetings with the kids on Sundays. They're not super long, but we just kind of ask them, like, what did you do right? What could you have done differently? What are your goals this week? And they have to create 2 if-then statements, 1 negative, 1 positive. If I positive, activity, then I,
Yeah,
and then a negative.
that's
So,
cool.
mhm.
I love that. What encouragement would you like to give to people who want to be more consistent in their success in their network marketing business from your vantage point?
My advice is honestly, like, take the time to plan. Like, if anything, that has to be the most important thing on your schedule, because otherwise, like you said, like the boss didn't show up,
Mhm.
and employees need direction and they need to know what to do.
Right.
And so just do it and
I love
use
it.
Google Calendar, because Google Calendar is awesome.
It is, it's great. It is great. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Amanda, for taking the time to share your best practices and some of the areas where you struggle. I know that's helpful for a lot of people. And we're super grateful for you. So thank you.
Thank you.